Welcome to The Real Demers, where we champion cinematic real-demption for the B-sides, the offbeat, and the overlooked. We've worked in and around Hollywood, so we know just how hard it is to get a movie made. This is our space to celebrate cinematic misfits that we hope you'll enjoy as much as we do. Today we're spotlighting something I would deem pretty overlooked. Overlooked, certainly compared to its cinematic brethren. When we're recording this, it's almost spooky season. Now, I dig horror movies all year round, but we're knocking on the door of Halloween, and I wanted to dive into a movie I feel deserves a little more love that's perfect for this time of year. Lock your doors, seal your windows, and crank up that jazz. We're discussing John Carpenter's The Fog. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Bellavia, and I'm here with
Andre Sanglade.
Now, normally, this is where I would ask you something like, are you a big fan of John Carpenter? But I know you are, because you have blood flowing through your veins and a brain in your head. So what's your experience with John Carpenter?
John Carpenter came into my life a bit later than you might expect. I didn't grow up watching horror films. I just didn't handle them well. I always have very vivid dreams. So if I watch horror films, especially as a kid, I would have insane nightmares. So I preferred to just spare myself from that torment. But there came a time, especially in high school, where I was like, you know what? I should, as a film lover, I should probably watch some of these classic horror films that people keep talking about. So I watched Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween, and I loved them both. And it made me realize, oh, I need to check out more films by these directors. So that took me down that rabbit hole. But I'll be honest, I have not seen most of his films. So after watching this, I'm actually going to ask you for some recommendations on what else I should check out.
All right. Oh, okay. Well, perfect. Perfect. Maybe some future episodes coming up.
What about you? What was your first introduction?
I think my parents rented Starman when I was a kid. I remember watching that pretty young, and that's a little bit more family friendly, even though it's dealing with like deep themes. It's more of just like a heartwarming sci-fi movie. And then kids at school would talk about like Big Trouble in Little China and They Live. Like I'd catch that at friends' houses on like TBS or TNT. And he just seemed like the cool, like there's a person making movies with like weird aliens and, just like, mysticism and like, aliens. I was like, you could do this? So I think at a young age, it was even kind of like, oh, wow. So does everybody kind of make like movies this varied? And no. And I think it just was this introduction to somebody that had this just amazing career that just happened to feature like genre movies. And then I fell in love with Halloween as a teenager. I mean, it's one of my favorite horror movies. I used to watch it.
There's a reason, right? There's a reason it's considered a classic. It is that good. When I watched it later in life, I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. So I was pleasantly surprised.
There's a scene of Jamie Lee Curtis, like Laurie trying to get from one house to the other and trying to get in and just like pounding on the door to have like the, Tommy let her into the house while Michael's coming. And I saw that in like a Blockbuster. It was just on in like the background as like a promo. And it got my blood pumping in the store. And to this day, I know what's going to happen in the film. And it still like kind of gets me going. And then over time, like my appreciation kind of only grew. So even like a B-side like Prince of Darkness, not the most well-regarded film in the world. Look, it's not perfect, but I really enjoy that one. I caught an edited version of The Thing on the Sci-Fi Channel at my grandparents' house. And I was like, this thing's amazing. I was like, even in an edited form, I was like, this is great. And when I got back to Rochester, I rented it and brought it over to a friend's house and we had a movie night and everybody was just like blown away by how good it is. That's probably my favorite horror movie. That, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, an Audition, kind of all jockey for like the first placement. But right this second, I'd say The Thing. But out of all of his films, the one that took me a few tries to win me over was The Fog. And this is one that I caught in my 20s. And I was like, okay, it's all right. I think right there, his career was Dark Star, Assault on Precinct 13, Halloween, Someone's Watching Me, Elvis, The Fog, Escape from New York, The Thing. So it's sandwiched between classics. It's like Someone's Watching Me, not as well known. Elvis with Kurt Russell. People really love the Kurt Russell performance in it, but that's not like
and was that a TV movie or was that theatrical?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then The Thing, huge heavy hitter. Escape from New York, huge heavy hitter. Halloween, huge heavy. And I'm not saying from like a box office perspective. The Thing didn't do great, but like in terms of just like reputation and stuff that people kind of hold up and put on a pedestal. I feel like it's in a no man's land between these guys. And yeah, it's no The Thing, it's no Halloween, but still pretty damn good. Now, was
Yeah.
this your first time watching it?
It was. I had heard of The Fog. I'll be honest, I didn't even realize it was a
Oh,
John
wow.
Carpenter film until you suggested it, and I loved it. I know you
Oh,
said it took you a couple of tries to get into it. I was all in. You know, to me, it was old school slow burn horror at its
mhm.
finest. And
Yep.
honestly, once I saw that it starts with an Edgar Allan Poe quote, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be awesome." But it's funny. I mean, you mentioned The Thing being your favorite John Carpenter, or excuse me, your favorite horror film. It is that good, and
Yeah.
people put it on the pedestal, rightly so. But that one I saw even later in life. I was working on a show, an assistant editor had mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I never saw it," and he could not believe that I hadn't seen it. So the next day, he handed me a DVD, and I went and I watched it. It's incredible.
I brought it to a sleepover on a Friday night and from Wegmans, like local, like upstate New York chain. And there was two copies. I swear, true story. The next night I had a party at my place and I still had that rental in my possession. We had more people come over and one of the girls brought the other copy of The Thing. And she's like, "This looked like something you guys would enjoy." And we all cheered. And then we watched it a second night in a row. We were so excited to watch it again with like this other group of people. And it's funny.
That's amazing.
Growing up, I remember it like not being held in high regard. Even my dad was like, "Oh yeah, they did that Thing remake," because I always would talk movies with him, and like he didn't
Really?
think like a ton of it. The total 180 it's had, and I still think it like the effects hold up 100%. But like, and not to
Yeah.
go off on a Thing tangent in our Fog episode, I just think it's important to like. I think that's why the Fog kind of lives in the shadow of that in Halloween. You have this exemplary creature feature. You've got
Right.
like the great granddaddy of slasher films, along with like Texas Chainsaw. Here's this kind of like more modest ghost story. And I think that that's where I was kind of like, oh man, this isn't balls to the wall like The Thing is, but it shouldn't be. It doesn't need to be. And for me, it was all about expectations. I brought the wrong expectations to this the first time I saw it. And then coming in, just treating it like you said, it's Carpenter telling a classic ghost story, a slow burn ghost story. Yeah, it succeeds. It does exactly what it's setting
Yeah.
out to do.
Yeah.
So just to set the stage, just what are we even talking about here? The Fog concerns Antonio Bay is about to celebrate its centennial, which should be an opportunity for some fun around town. Turns into a nightmare because the town is super haunted. As it turns out, Antonio Bay's forefathers tricked a ship full of lepers into crashing on the beach and stole the dead crew's gold. Now, 100 years later, the ghosts of the victims have returned to hunt down the relatives of their murderers. All right, so it's fairly straightforward. Sometimes we'll do descriptions on here and they can get a little deep and there's all these plot twists or whatever. It's essentially just on the eve of the town's, 100th anniversary, the fog starts to roll in, creepy happenings start to happen around town. We'll get into that. And
Yeah.
the ghosts will come out of the fog and begin to attack. And it's up to kind of like this motley crew of characters to figure out what's happening. And you kind of follow a couple different people around town over the course of the day.
It's just a simple ghost story. And I love it because it is different than The Thing and Halloween. But I think that's also cause for celebration in terms of how varied John Carpenter's films are.
Yep.
And like I said before, I didn't appreciate that growing up. And it took me a while to get to it. And I'm so glad I did.
You don't really have like, there's no Snake Plissken here. There's no McCready. There's no like Jack Burton. You do have Tom Atkins as Nick Castle. Great name based on one of the actors that portrayed Michael Myers, the OG Michael Myers, but also just amazing name. It is more of like you're following this assortment of people versus like one person. Do you think this would play stronger if you were just following one person, or do you like it's kind of like this mixed bag characters throughout the day?
I like that it's a mixed bag. When you're dealing with the repercussions of of the founding of a town, you want to explore the rest of the town. I would even say they could have added a couple more characters to give it a little bit more scope.
Okay, this is an independent film. He didn't have $10 million to do this. John Carpenter's held in such high regard now. But I mean, here's somebody that's scrapping for large portions of their career. The film industry was not always kind to them. So it's like, I think just that's part of it here. On that first watch, especially when shit hits the fan late in the film and it's an all out, like the ghosts are all over the town, you really don't see the ghosts attacking all over the town in the climax. But I think that's a budget issue. So I agree with you. I think if they had a little bit more money, just a few more characters, just where are they over the course of that night as the ghosts are attacking, a little bit more chaos. But again, I understand they were probably under financial constraints. They just couldn't show that.
Yeah, I think they made it for it was what $1 million, and that sounds like a lot of money, but honestly, it's not.
No, agreed, agreed. And I think the other thing that I was a little, again, on first watch, and look, I'm reformed. I've turned around. I'm Team Fog. Um, it's not a gory movie. And people are getting stabbed all over the place by these ghosts, but as opposed to like big gaping wounds or whatever, they're just not going there. I think that fits this story better. I think for if you're telling like a classic ghost story, I think it's still gruesome enough where you see like hooks and knives and swords and all that jazz. If you had Gru spilling out of folks, I feel like that would be a bit of a turnoff in this setting. And right now, I feel like just with the mood and kind of the creepiness and like the slow dread, I could just throw this on at a Halloween party. I think that would kind of spoil it if you had it kind of cranking that aspect of it up. What do you think?
You know, it's interesting. I read an article where the first cut of it, Carpenter was not a fan of. He felt that it wasn't scary enough or gory enough. So in an article on sci-fi.com talking about the film, it says, but after filming was completed and the film was edited and scored, Carpenter knew he had a problem. Quote, it was really bad, he remembered, for the 2003 DVD. I mean, really bad. On the disc's commentary, Deborah Hill, who was the co-writer, identified a more contemporary problem with the film. We had to get a little gorier. I think at the time, David Cronenberg had just come out with Scanners, and he had taken the genre to a point where we had to go back and reassess some of the scares in the movie. So do you know were you familiar with this? Do you know what they went back and actually added?
Did they add I thought they went back and added the corpse that kind of menaces Jamie Lee Curtis in the hospital, but maybe there's something else?
So, per the article, the first cut didn't have the three fishermen getting killed.
Oh, what? No, you need no. You absolutely need.
They were apparently they just showed the fog on the boat. So they went back and shot that whole violent slaughter.
Yeah.
Which you absolutely need. In the article, it also says Carpenter also decided spookier material was needed for the introduction. So he and Hill went out with the second unit and shot the surreal scenes of the town that run under the extended title credits. So that happened. And then I'm not sure if they also added the intro where the captain is telling.
I had read that was added. You know, it's funny. This is some of the best stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like I could see how they were a little concerned on the first cut, like, oh snap, this is taking a second to get going. But I think
I do love. Sorry, go ahead.
The attack on the ship is brutal, but it's also not a gore fest. And I think that so it's like that's towing the line properly, where it's like you need to show something. It can't be all so subtle. Like if you had just seen the fog and then they come across the boat later and everyone's dead, that's almost too subtle, especially for the time period. But also when these guys are getting killed, it's not just like buckets of like one guy gets like a spike through the eyes, but they don't show it. It's just like a quick stab and you hear the sound design. And with the sound design, that's gruesome enough as it is. I don't need to see like, oh my gosh, his eyes popping out. Like I can appreciate a little gore here and there. A movie that comes to mind with this is Fulci's City of the Living Dead, which is about this evil consuming this town. And that's similarly where there's a town and just like, miscellaneous events start happening. That thing is a splatter film. And I love it for different reasons. That creates a sense of dread in one vein. This creates a sense of dread in another vein. I think Fulci level gore in this film, it wouldn't hit the same way.
Agreed. I think the imagination does enough.
I agree.
I do like, also that article also talks about just in terms of how he shot the ghosts in shadows, right? It says, quote, Carpenter shot the ghosts mostly in shadow, saying H.P. Lovecraft always wrote about these horrible things that if you saw them, you might be driven insane. They were beyond description. And that's exactly what we tried to do with the ghosts, mostly keep them as silhouettes, which I thought was awesome too.
And I think it works. Yeah. You get some glowing red eyes. You get a little green goopy face with some worms in it, and that's it.
Yeah.
You don't need any more than that.
Don't need any more.
But something that's touched on here is the opening, and also I think I don't know. I must have been crazy back in the day. I mean, like case number 102. But the opening, some of my favorite stuff, where it opens with a gentleman taking some kids out camping. Or just they're out and about, I guess, up late telling ghost stories. Mr. Macon, played by John Houseman, I guess, who did it like one day of the work. It's him just telling this little spooky ghost story. it's almost midnight. And it's perfect. His casting's perfect. And it sets the tone for what you're about to see, like perfectly with that John Carpenter score, like undercutting it. One thing I like about this film is, even though it's set in April, the chilly vibes of it are off the charts. I can feel this movie while I'm watching it. That's why I think it's a good, like, Halloween watch. All the table setting in that opening scene, from just the mood to also he's setting the story up. It's kind of this bastardization of what happened to the ship that crashed. We get more details as it goes on. There was this tragedy at sea. There's all these dead sailors, and like maybe they'll come in to like this campfire light, like we have one here. And then you just kind of move into the town. And then once you're in the town, you just mentioned, there's all these little touches that a haunting is occurring. And all of a sudden, car alarms start going off. The animals seem like they're bothered. Gas starts pumping like by itself, like at a gas station. The hydraulics. I love that. I could watch that almost like an ASMR background for like an hour of just like spooky happenings like around the town. It's so cool. But then you need that scene on the boat because that's the punchline. It's leading you like, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? Boom. This threat comes out of the fog to attack these people.
100% you need that. And I'm so glad they went back and shot more for it.
Yep.
The town's buildup is great. I mean, the anamorphic lenses they're using just give it an amazing, beautiful scope in terms of the cinematography. It's awesome. I also love, just from that beginning, after he's done telling the kids this story, it's such a simple camera move, but we move up past his face to black and then over the ridge to see the town and the fog coming in over the water, and then it says John Carpenter's The Fog. I mean, it's a great opening.
Yep.
It's a great opening.
Some of the characters we're following, we have a DJ who owns a lighthouse and does her broadcasts out of there. Stevie Wayne, played by Adrienne Barbeau. We've got hitchhiking Jamie Lee Curtis playing Elizabeth, and she's picked up by my favorite character, Nick Castle, played by legend Tom Atkins. We've got alcoholic Father Malone, played by Hal Holbrook, who is absolutely not phoning it in for this movie. I love how much he's putting into this smaller role. And then
he's all in for sure.
You've got Janet Leigh playing Kathy Williams, kind of one of the more important highfalutin folks here in the town, and her assistant Sandy, played by Nancy Keys. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
I love that it's Janet Leigh and her daughter Jamie Lee Curtis are in it.
Do you know the other movie that they were in together?
I don't know.
Halloween H2O, which is not as good as this movie. It's good, but not as good as this one. So
I will say I don't think I've seen any of the Halloween sequels. So you might have to provide me a list of those too.
That is a story. I have a lot of love for that extremely goofy franchise. So okay, well, we'll talk off mic about that. But
sounds good.
Again, to your point earlier, there's a version of this where we're following more people. I think with a limited cast, they do a good job. And one thing is, I really like the shorthand relationships. Janet Leigh's Kathy and Sandy, there's no intro. Just Sandy's her assistant. Kathy's very stressed out with the anniversary of the town coming up, and she's trying to get everything ready. Her husband's one of the guys on the boat, so she starts to be stressed out when that boat doesn't come back. Sandy's just kind of supportive, but also a little harried. That's it. It's you don't get a ton of more plot development than that, but like it's a lived-in relationship. You're following them around.
I love that. I love that we just jump into that and we don't need a backstory. Like, oh, I'm so glad I hired you, 2 years ago. It's like, no, you don't need that. Just get in. We see their relationship. Like you said, she's just barking orders at her in a respectful way.
Yeah.
And I love that, her assistant can push back too and be a little sassy.
And then, Nick Castle picks up like Elizabeth. This is the benefit of just casting the right people. Because again, you don't know a ton about Nick Castle. You don't know a ton about the Elizabeth character, but they're both charismatic. So she gets in, they're kind of flirty with each other. By my count, they're in bed together in under an hour because
he clearly has game. Yeah. He's got game, Greg.
Absolutely.
He's got game.
Sure. But Stevie Wayne when we first start hearing her, it's at midnight. They're in bed by 1 a.m. And I think he picks her up around 12:15 by my count. So, I mean, just if you think about it, but like in the course of the movie, you're like, sure, great. There's a little bit when they're in bed together, she's giving a little bit of her history. They're flirty. He's looking through her drawings. There's a real warmth there. So again, there's not a giant 3-act structure worth of character development. I'm hitchhiking because I need to get to a job to pay for my mother who's died. I'm a hitchhiker. I got some chemistry with this guy. I'm going to stick around town. By casting the right folks, this totally works. If it wasn't quite and Adrienne Barbeau as the DJ, I love her
Amazing.
performance. She's got the perfect voice for it. She's got the mannerisms down. And again, a lot of her role is just her in a lighthouse reacting to people like just on the phone. Like I think she has one scene with her son, and then later on she's interacting with some of the ghosts, but she never really hangs out with the rest of the cast. It's all and they pulled that off.
Absolutely. And the way she switches personas in between scenes, right? From when she has to go back on the air to then when she's dealing with some intense stuff while she's talking to people on the phone. She's superb in this.
Should we pool our resources and host this podcast from a lighthouse?
Oh, that's a good idea.
All right, I'll start looking around.
I think you and I are 100% in. I don't know how our wives will react.
Do you think that I'm not sure my kids would do on those stairs, those winding stairs that lead up to the.
I mean, there is that great shot of her walking down. It's daytime, walking down to the lighthouse. I got exhausted just watching her walk
That'd be
down.
one
Like,
hell of a
do
commute.
this.
I mean, on day 3 of that commute, I'd be like, I'm moving back to the city. I can't do this.
Yeah, it's like I'm moving this equipment somewhere else.
But even like tiny things where you go through her house and you see pictures of her husband, and the son, and the husband's never mentioned. So I'm assuming they're dead. The pictures are so displayed so prominently. I don't get the feeling that was, a bad breakup or anything. The movie just kind of leaves it there. He's not in the picture. Other people are trying to flirt
And it
with
works.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not milking any of that for melodrama, which I appreciate.
Carpenter's always been good at direct to the point storytelling and hasn't had to really lean into like melodrama to like sell it. And like, look, I can appreciate melodrama in certain things, just that's not something that I come to his films looking for, and I don't need it here.
I do have a couple of questions though. Only because, hey, Greg, this is my first watch.
Okay.
So in your plot description, you had mentioned that it was lepers that were coming on the ship. I didn't quite understand. I tried to figure out the exact details. I even went back to rewatch some of the scenes. It sounded like it was a group of pirates who encountered a leper colony, right? And then were headed towards
this is where it gets
town.
confusing. I've seen people call them pirate ghosts, and I want to call them pirate ghosts. I love pirate ghosts. I grew up on Scooby-Doo. The concept of a pirate ghost is very enticing to me. I don't think that's it. I think there was a colony that had one of the citizens was very rich, and they were so rich that they were going to pay their way to take the colony and move it close to Antonio Bay, and they'd be their neighbors 1 mile down. So where we're getting this information is over the course of the night where everything haunted is happening, Father Malone's getting tanked back at the church, and one of the rocks in his wall comes loose, and he discovers his grandfather's, there's an old diary and there's some other things behind there. And reading through the diary, you get the history, kind of what happened that cursed night 100 years ago. So this rich guy was like, hey, I'm going to pay our way. We'll be your neighbors. And in the diary, they're like, wow, I have a lot of compassion. These poor people, they're suffering so much. But I'm also kind of terrified of having them so close because they're so contagious. So I think I don't believe they're pirates. I think that was the ship meant to settle, and instead the townspeople tricked them into crashing because they didn't want lepers as neighbors. And Blake's the rich man.
But it was a little confusing because, I did see like pirates somewhere. And I think Blake pulling out the sword, your mind just automatically goes to, oh, these are pirates.
And the ship looks like at one point when the ship's out at sea, you see the ship a little bit. It looks like a pirate ship. So
I thought it was a pirate ship.
Hardcore pirate vibes.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I had thought it was pirates before I did my big rewatch and got won over by it. So no, I agree with you. I think if you polled a lot of people, they would say they're pirates. I don't think that's it though. I think it's the leper colony was coming over, and I think that's why it's like Blake has a sword, but a lot of them have just like hooks and
the fishing
and sharp objects that they found around the ship. But like definitely, if you want a pirate vibed horror film, it certainly will give you that.
Definitely. There were even moments when I thought it was pirates. I was like, oh, I wonder if Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, kind of took some influence from this. My other question was, there's a moment, towards the climax of the film, most of the characters end up in the church, and Father Malone is saying they're here for 6 people that were the original conspirators. Mm-hmm. And they're here to kill the ancestors of those 6 conspirators. I'm one of them. They're here for me. Not exact dialogue, but along those lines. I didn't understand then, and this isn't a criticism. This is more just me not understanding. So why were they going after Andy, the kid?
Okay, good question. Why were they going after the kid? Why are they going after Stevie at the lighthouse? Why aren't they going? No, that's a great question. I think the answer is just because it's spooky. That's it. I guess if we wanted to get a little bit more like critical, or if we wanted to kind of help them out, I think it's maybe the rampage will continue until they've had their six. Look, we're going to keep doing this until you hand them over.
That's sort of where I was leaning. I just wasn't sure if maybe I missed something because you've seen it more than I have.
I don't think, no, I think I don't know if I call that again, I don't, to your point, I don't think it dings it.
No.
I don't think the film explains it. I think it's just general. Why does the corpse menace Jamie Lee Curtis at the hospital? Just because it's spooky.
Because it's spooky.
But I took it as just we're gonna screw up this town until we have our six. The other thing that's kind of funny is they figure out that in the diary and in the wall, the gold that they stole has been melted down into this giant cross. So they give the ghost here's your here's our ill-gotten gains. We're giving it back to you. And that kind of appeases them so they stop attacking other people until the very end of the movie where they come back to decapitate Father Malone. But I find it funny, that is a plot point that's introduced Hail Married in the last 10 minutes of it's like, it's not them working together. How can we get rid of these ghosts and doing detective work? It's literally in the diary. Hey, we stole some gold. It's here in the wall. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny how like
I didn't mind that, and I'll tell you why. Because for me, what takes me out of a film is when there is an antagonist or a villain or an element that is so powerful that you just feel there's no realistic way these people can defeat it. And we didn't have that element throughout. It's almost like, okay, so what's going to happen? But then when they introduced, the six must die, then okay, maybe they'll leave once they kill six people. So it could either end that way, or they introduce this element in the journal or the diary that shows, and maybe if they give them the gold back, that could work. So I do appreciate that there is a way to sort of quote unquote defeat them, even though they're technically still sort of around in the end. But there is a finite period to this story. Now, I don't mean like I don't like having sequels or anything like that. What I mean is like a big thing now in films is a character that has nanobytes or nanotechnology, right? So they could just turn into anything and turn into like their hand into a gun or an axe. And it's like, realistically, what can humans do against that, right? Yeah. It's just so all powerful, kind of takes me out. So having something to feed them, I appreciate. Even if it is in the last 10 minutes.
No, and also I'm laughing kind of good-hearted about it, but like the movie works without that. And if anything, like they could have just killed the six, and then that could have been the end of the movie. So if anything, it's a nice little bonus. Like, they would probably want to give them the gold back as like a sign of like good faith. And to your point, it ends with them coming back for Father Malone, but I think that's the like revenge enacted. Like I don't imagine them just like still sticking around the town and haunting it. It's like, okay, well, we got the gold, we killed our six. Back on the boat, I guess. So.
No, I agree. I really like this movie. I'm so glad you had me watch it.
I'm going through my notes. I wrote drinking and driving is cool. Nick is enjoying a beer, which he passes off to Elizabeth when he first picks her up. I love it.
There's a different time, Greg.
Different time.
Drinking and driving
is not saying drinking and driving is cool.
Yeah, we're not saying drinking and driving is cool.
Just put that beer down.
Yeah.
One little detail I like is Kathy's husband, who's killed on the boat. She's so worried that her husband's out there and consumed with grief. What do we know about him? He wants to sleep with Stevie the DJ. Like they're like, "Aren't you married?" And he's like, "Not that married." It's like, man, this guy's an asshole. So just I like that little character shading where he's not a saint, where he's like, "I need to get back to my wife. She's probably up like waiting for me." It's like, hey, it's a dick, or just shit with his friends here on this boat. So I thought that I like that nice little.
So you're saying it's a happy ending for Kathy?
He doesn't know it. I like how Father Malone is. Hal Holbrook. Maybe he's in this movie for 10 minutes, maybe less than that, but like I feel like he's given a lot with he gives a lot with what he's given. It starts and you with broad strokes, he's an alcoholic. He's drinking when nobody's watching, he's already a little drunk, the entire film. But reading that diary, the weight of what the town has done is on his shoulders, and it's almost like he wants them to kill. Like it's interesting what he brings that character, because he seems like racked with guilt to start the movie, and then like this just kind of like compounds everything. And it's just like, I love, again, it's just casting the right people in the right roles. I don't think everybody could have pulled that role off, but just have Hal Holbrook, great actor, and even if he's in it for like just a little bit, he's going to bring everything.
For sure. And he resigns to his fate. And you feel that, like you said, in his performance.
Some IMDb trivia I thought was interesting is they went with jazz because the royalties were cheaper. I like it. I mean, I think a lot of movies would have leaned into rock at this time, and that would have been a cool movie too. But it gives it like again, there's for the creeping dread flavor, I think a rock and roll soundtrack would have set like a different kind of tone. So I like the jazz. And then
I also feel, sorry to interrupt, I also feel that probably would have dated it a little bit more. Not that it's not dated, obviously, it came out in 1980, but at that time, contemporary rock songs in would have felt a little bit more dated.
No, I'm with. By default, they kind of stumbled across something pretty cool. And then John Carpenter was so horrified by his performance that kind of like he pulled back in acting roles. I think he's fine. I don't think it really goes one way or the other, but I don't think there's anything to be too mortified about.
I was surprised I recognized him. I was like, wait, is that John Carpenter? He plays Bennett, the sort of handyman helper at the church.
And for the record, the real Deemer thinks you did a fine job. So if you want to come out of acting retirement, that'd be okay. Just going through my notes, are the ghosts trolling Father Malone at the end? Why do they leave and come back?
I think ultimately what it is movie making, in that we want that last comeuppance, surprise comeuppance. I don't think there's a deeper explanation than that.
No, I agree with you.
Which I'm not going to fault the movie for, because I liked it. Because even Father Malone is really surprised. He says something like, why didn't they come for me? Why didn't they should have killed me, and then they come and kill him.
No, it's a great little button at the end.
Yeah.
Anything you want to dive into before we get into our categories?
I just want to reiterate again, as someone who's seeing it for the first time, I really enjoyed it. I think if anyone hasn't seen it, it's a great little slow burn horror film. And if you are into those, you should check this out.
I'd say maybe if you slept on it before like I did, worth coming back to. And look, it's not The Thing. It's not Halloween. What is? Like how many directors make like all-time classic, and just like it's really good. It's got a lot going for it, and it's a different flavor than some of that other stuff. So worth revisiting.
Before we get to the categories, what are some other Carpenter films I should check out?
I mean, Christine, really good. I mean, it's also interesting, kind of the working class director of genre stuff and the working class author of genre stuff kind of teaming up for a project that turns out as well as it does. Like that's really good. Starman, that was him making a big Hollywood movie, and I think it's really beautiful.
I saw that either this past year or last year, and I loved it.
Yeah,
it's such a great little movie, and Jeff Bridges is phenomenal in it.
No, really, like, and like, I don't use melodrama as like an insult, but like a little bit more just dramatic, and just it's more of like he's an alien and destroy this relationship. It's a really lovely little movie, and maybe like from the director of Escape from New York, you wouldn't expect. So it's like he's somebody who I feel like had more tools in the toolbox than people give him credit for, and that's why he's had this amazing Hall of Fame career. But like maybe if a few other things went his way, it would have been even longer. I feel like he kind of left the business because it was so frustrating to him.
Like I said before, the genres he explores is so varied, and I love that. When I saw Starman, I was not expecting it, and I know I keep harping on melodrama, but I'm with you. The right amount in any film will work. But to him leaving the industry, I did notice there's a movie he did called The Ward in 2019. Have you seen that?
It's okay. I mean, look, I don't think it's up to some of his other things, but still, it's an enjoyable horror film. And I wish he'd make more. But again, he loves making music. I think one thing, like the score here, awesome. Another good John Carpenter score. He's got a talent
so
for
good.
It. And I think he can go play a show. He's got an adoring crowd. He likes doing his thing. I get it. If he's happier, I wouldn't call it retirement, but if he's happier not making movies because it's so frustrating, I get that. Just as a fan, I wish he had one or two left in him just to knock out. But like that's me being greedy. It's not like he hasn't left behind more than enough stuff.
We can say that about a lot of directors we like too.
No, absolutely. I guess for B-sides, I think Prince of Darkness is fascinating. Even a horror podcast I listened to, they were a little down on it. It's not perfect. That's a story for another day. But I think it's melding two very different sources. Fascinating movie. I like Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Again, kind of a weird one. It's part genre adventure film, part comedy starring Chevy Chase, but I think more of it works than doesn't work. So it's like I don't think it's a bad film by any stretch. I kind of like his Village of the Damned remake. Again, the original is a stone cold classic, so doing a remake you're going to get into a little bit of trouble with. But like, I think it's good. It doesn't touch the original in terms of like impact because you've seen the original. It's the same story, but I think it's a fine film. And then Escape from LA. I don't know if I'd say I'm a defender. It's so satirical. I could see that being a turnoff for people. Like, is it too silly? But I mean, looking at it now and looking at where we are in 2025, I think the satire hits a little bit harder. This kind of goes back to our Running Man episode. I think the satire kind of fits in better today than it did even in the 90s.
I can't remember if I've seen that one or not. I might have to watch that as well. But Village of the Damned, I haven't even seen the originals. Should I check that out?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I told you, horror films are...
We're set up for success on many future episodes. Also, there was the TV show Masters of Horror. He did 2 episodes pro-life and cigarette burns, and those are 2 of my favorite episodes. They brought back a whole bunch of different horror directors, a lot of great names. You know, there were some hits and there were some misses, and I like both of his entries a lot.
Awesome.
Welcome to our categories. This is the part of our show where we highlight some of our favorite moments and performances and just spotlight stuff we liked. We'll kick things off with Heart of the Film.
The sins of your ancestors can and will catch up to you.
You know, I agree. I phrased it, don't trick your neighbors into killing themselves or they might haunt you.
I like that version. I like that version better.
But we're essentially saying the same thing. So.
I love it.
What is your favorite scene?
There's a couple, but for me, my favorite scene was the scene where Mrs. Kobritz and Andy are attacked in the house.
Oh.
I just love that build up with Stevie on the radio realizing and seeing that the fog is rolling down towards their house and engulfing it. And then she's pleading for anyone to go and help her son. She's just screaming on the radio. And I would take that scene all the way up to where Nick rescues Andy through the window. So what happens is Andy's in his room and Mrs. Kobritz is already killed, sadly, and the ghosts are breaking down Andy's door. So suddenly Nick smashes the window with his elbow and rescues Andy out.
Okay, so in the past, I've gone a little long with my scenes. It's like, you can't say the first 45 minutes was your favorite scene. It's too long. So I love the first 25 minutes. I will narrow it down. I love the first 25 minutes with the length of the first haunting, because that's from the ghost story. It rolls into the town. It rolls into the ghost on the boat. And then it rolls into the ghost menacing Nick and Elizabeth. And then it basically plays out over the course of an hour. And then from the witching hour, midnight to 1, when 1 o'clock hits, the ghosts vanish for that evening and they come back the next day. So I was going to say the ghost attack on the boat. I love the ghost attack on the boat. But I'm going to go with the ghosts menacing Nick and Elizabeth, because that's right at the end of the hour. They're in bed together. They've got this nice little bonding moment. She's showing him her drawings. He's like, hey, I got a question for you. What's your name? After they've hooked up. I thought that was good. But like, they've got
like I said, he's got game.
He's got game.
He's got game.
So they have this nice little scene, and then you hear that knock on the door, and you're like, it's one of those ghosts, and they're outside. And then you see they're knocking with a hook. I love that. That's a nice little spooky story detail. So Nick's gonna go answer the door, and you're like, well, this guy doesn't have a chance against this ghost. And then, it's 1 a.m. Attack's over, and he opens the door, and they're gone, and that's it. Like the clock breaks. It's 1 o'clock. Stevie on the radio announces, it's the end of her shift. It's the perfect ending to all the mayhem that we've been experiencing. So it's like, I could watch that first 25 minutes. I've watched it a few times this year. There's something awesome, spooky, but also kind of soothing about it. Again, like ASMR horror for me. And that's just the climax. Yeah.
Yeah, it's creepy. And I do love that Stevie points out, like you hear her say, as Nick is about to open the door and unlock it, she says, well, it's the end of the witching hour. And it's like, okay, plot point, but it works.
Yep. No, it's cute. It's cute. It's telling you exactly what would happen, but there's a lot to enjoy.
Yeah, another scene, the other 2 scenes I want to highlight are all with Stevie.
Yeah.
The first one is when Nick, Andy, and Elizabeth are driving through the town, and Stevie's calling out which streets the fog is rolling down. And you see the fog coming in and engulfing all the streets around them. The music there is incredible too. Mm-hmm. And then the last scene I want to mention is when Stevie's attacked. She climbs to the top of the lighthouse, and there's a moment she gets stabbed. My mouth dropped because I legit thought she was going to die. And I think that's a testament to how good the suspense and creepiness and everything is set up. She lives, but it was still such a great little moment.
Yep. Well, one more Stevie scene. Her son sees a gold coin on the beach. When they go to investigate, it suddenly transforms into a piece of wood from that crashed ship all those years ago. So he brings the driftwood back. She carries it into her studio. And then while she's just trying to get ready for her workday, she sets it down on top of some of her equipment and it starts just like gushing seawater because it's still haunted. And you hear the rhyme of the ancient mariner all like warbling coming out of the rain. I think that's a nice like little creepy scene. So again, like I think this can actually lead us into our underrated element category because I would say all the ghost shenanigans that aren't the lepers. So I wrote some stuff down. Rocks breaking in the office. There's a little mini earthquake. One of the characters, their TV's turning on, it's just static, and then their chair moves in the house. Whole bunch of phones ringing, glass breaking, car alarms going off, gas pouring out, the hydraulics in the garage, like I mentioned before, the coin turning into the wood, power lines going out. I feel like if you think about this movie, you're going to think about ghosts emerging from the fog. And sure, they're great creatures, but I love all the spooky other little touches around. It just complements it so well. What is your kind of underrated element?
I had two. The first one is just that it's mainly a female cast. The other thing is Tom Adkins, he's a good looking guy.
Sure.
But he's just a normal looking dude,
Yes.
right? He's not your typical movie star handsome man. And I'm not saying he's not a good looking guy, but he's more of an everyday average guy, which is completely rare for a leading man now. Like, I feel like nowadays it's got to be this TV, good looks, perfect physique person. And it was kind of nice and refreshing just to see a normal dude holding his own, being the lead of a film, too.
Let's just say Tom Atkins has a certain cult popularity in the horror circles, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, my friend. There's more Tom Atkins where this is coming from. So.
All right, I'm ready. Bring it on. I'm a fan. He's fantastic. I'm a fan for sure.
I'm so excited for the journey we're going to go on. So that's all I'm going to say about that. All right, MVP.
John Carpenter.
Ooh.
And it's not a cheat because he did convincingly play the church helper handyman named Bennett, which we talked about earlier. But he's the MVP because he also directed, co-wrote, and composed the film. You know, we had mentioned how good the music is, but I just love me some thriller / horror-esque 80s synth.
I think you've got the right answer. I think just to mix up, I'm going to say Dean Cundy's cinematography. I think this movie looks great. Like I would love to walk around this town. And
yes,
I think they certainly helped propel early John Carpenter career. I think that's part of why he was so successful was his work with Dean Cundy. And they've had a fantastic career, but I just think this is one of my favorites by them. Also, quick sidebar. I think what you just touched on with underrated with the women. I think maybe that's something that had bugged me the first time was Jamie Lee Curtis is amazing. She doesn't have a lot to do here. But she's charming with what she's given. So it's like, if you come here and you're like, man, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. It's not really a starring role. It's just she's there, but she does a good job in the limited amount that she's in the story.
That's fair. I should have mentioned that because I did have that feeling watching it too. You expect her, she is a star. You expect her to have a bit more meaty of a role, but like you said, with what she's given to do, she's really good. I also want to shout out though as MVP. My second choice was absolutely Adrienne Barbeau as Stevie.
Well, I mean, I think this is her first film role. She'd done some TV, and she's got such a presence. Yeah.
Is it really? I did not know that. Wow. Good for her. She's awesome in this.
Have you ever seen A Creep Show?
No.
One, really good anthology movie. Two, her and Hal Holbrook play this miserable married couple. So if you want to see them playing completely different roles, check out Creep Show. Whole thing's good. Favorite shot?
There are a lot of great shots in here, Greg.
Yep.
But honestly, for me, the one that just completely blew me away is the reveal of the ghost ship in the fog during the boat attack scene, where you see the two men standing in the foreground, their backs to us looking up, and it's just such a shocking moment because you don't know what's happening, right? Yep. You had this amazing opening that you had already referenced with the buildup of the fog coming in, and then suddenly you see this sort of ghost ship emerge out of the fog, and it's such an awesome shot.
I might go the ship attack when there's the last guy and he's there and you see the ghost kind of enter the door behind him, but then it disappears into the shadows and you know it's coming, but like he has no idea what's coming up behind him. The creep factor of the film, that kind of sums it up. And also it's simple, but the shot that I always kind of like want to put my fist in the air, you hear the knock on the door, Nick's interested, and then you see it's a hook. that's knocking. I love that.
Yeah, that reveal, because then it's just so creepy. There's two other shots I want to call out. One of them is there's a moment where again Stevie's in the lighthouse. She's at her DJ desk, and we cut to this shot of fog just coming over the cliff like a wave, and then you cut to her horrified face as she realizes it's coming her way. Just the way they were able to get that fog to come down, cascading down like a wave, just it just works, with how much terror has already been built into this fog. It's such an effective shot.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
And then the last shot, and this is like the simplest shot ever, but because of how well Carpenter can build suspense, is when Stevie's climbing up to the rooftop of the lighthouse, she looks back and there's just this static singular shot of the ladder handles and there's fog swirling around it. And you just know something is going to climb up, but it doesn't happen that first shot. But you're like, oh man, something's gonna happen right now with this. And then you see it later that one of the ghosts actually, their hand comes up, or I think it's the hook that actually comes up, and it's super creepy. But just that quick cut of that simple shot, building suspense with simplicity is amazing.
Who is having the most fun?
Whoever is working the fog machine on set. It might be, I think I looked this up, Richard Albane Jr. on special effects, maybe.
Okay, well, I think I like that answer. I'm saying Tom Atkins because he's the man.
That's awesome. I mean, my other answer was going to be Hal Holbrook as Father Malone, because there's also a moment at the climax of the film when everyone gets to the church. He's just gone, right? He's drunk, has no cares in the world, trying to just explain to people what's going on. And I love that there's a moment where one of the ghosts breaks a window and you see the hand with the hook come through. Everybody jumps and reacts, but except for Father Malone, because he's just like, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, we deserve it.
It's, again, resigned to his fate and drinking.
What scene would you show someone to hook them?
There's a scene where Stevie's on the phone with the weatherman, Dan, who's played by Charles Cyphers. And she has a couple scenes with him, but I think it's the second or third scene. It's when she's on the phone with him and he's attacked. What we try to do with this category is we want to find will compel someone to watch it, but without giving too much away or spoiling too much. And I feel like that scene actually sets up a good amount and will get someone interested. Because it's him, not realizing what's going on. He's like, who's that at the door? He opens it. And I would end it like right as he's grabbed.
Yep.
So that way it's compelling enough to make someone want to watch it. What about you?
I don't know if this is too subtle. I'd say the opening ghost story.
Ooh, okay.
Because it's just like, because is that enough that you're like, okay, well, and then up to the fog? Because it's like, do you want to keep watching after that to see where this is kind of headed? And is that enough of a teaser? So also, I think Houseman's doing such a good job. I feel like he sells it enough that would keep people.
Yeah, no, that works.
All right, t-shirt quote.
So I had two, but one of them I think is way too long for a t-shirt.
The entire opening monologue.
Exactly. But my pick is, how can a man drown and not touch the water and then just have the fog under it? That's said by Nick when he's helping investigate what happened to the three men on the boat. And then I'll wait to say my second one after you give yours.
From the diary Father Malone finds, it has midnight till 1 belongs to the dead. And then you see the ghosts coming out of the fog.
Oh, that's way better than mine. That's awesome. The other one I had was something Father Malone says from the journal as well. We were aided by an unearthly fog that rolled in as if heaven sent, although God had no part in our actions that night. But that's just too long for a t-shirt. I'd wear the t-shirt you said.
Oscars.
John Carpenter for score. It's so good.
I agree. Also, okay, so specifically for score, also John Carpenter Lifetime Achievement Award at this particular Oscar ceremony. I'd say Dean Cundey Best Cinematography.
Nice.
And I'd probably add Hal Holbrook Best Supporting.
Awesome. Yeah, I would add Adrienne Barbeau as Best Actress. I mean, again, the way she's able to just shift back and forth between her DJ personality and then go back on the phone, like freaking out about the fog that's coming in, that's fantastic acting. And the moment, she's pleading with someone to come save her son, and then even after we know he's safe, she's apologizing to him, not even realizing that he's already saved. She's saying, I wish I could have been there for you. And it's just it's a heartbreaking moment.
And again, so much of her role is just her alone, just react like on a phone or talking into the microphone, just whatever, and just you have to be able to sell it, and she does.
I didn't even realize that until you mentioned it earlier. She really only has maybe 1 or 2 scenes with people, and it's her son, and everywhere else it's just her. That's not easy for an actor.
And we always like to wrap up with crew shout out. So maybe somebody that's a little underappreciated. And who would you give the crew shout out to for The Fog?
I'm going to go with the production accountant because someone needs to handle the budget and the money, and that's no easy task, especially for a low budget film and feature. So the production accountant on The Fog was Donald P. Borchers, and they actually went on to be a producer on The Beastmaster, Children of the Corn, and Highlander 2: The Quickening.
Whoa. I mean, that is, I would love to cover Highlander 2: The Quickening at some point, but all right, very nice.
I was not expecting to see those credits, especially as a producer, not a production accountant. So I was pleasantly surprised. So I'm very happy to give them a shout out.
I went with art director Craig Stearns. I think they do a great job here. I mean, I think, again, fantastic looking film. They went on to work on The Mask, Big Mama's House, Dead Heat, The Blob, Blob Rips. Maybe that's a future episode. And then I thought this was interesting. A lot of Stephen King TV stuff. So we got Quicksilver Highway, The Shining TV version, Storm of the Century, Rose Red, and King's version of The Kingdom Hospital. And those don't have like the same directors. Normally you'd think, oh, they're just working, like Mick Garris has done a ton of Stephen King things. So if it was all Mick Garris properties, okay, he's bringing along his crew. No, it's pretty varied. So I'm not sure why he was kind of the go-to guy, but like he was really plugged in there for a few years.
I have not seen any iteration of The Blob, so I'm happy to do that as a future episode.
Oh, good.
How many versions are there?
Well, there's the original Blob. The original Blob has a sequel. And then I just think there's the 80s Blob, and I just think there've been ripoffs.
Okay.
From there, but like,
so we're doing one of the ripoffs, is what you're saying?
Oh man, Blob ripoff! Like, let's sign me up. Sign me up. I just feel like The Fly and The Thing. Actually, this is good with The Thing. The Fly and The Thing are two very reputable, beloved, critically acclaimed horror films from the 80s. The Blob is like their sleazy cousin, but it's also really good. It does not hit, I mean, it's not the same, but at the same time, it is firing on so many like cool cylinders. I still think it's a sleep. It's got a cult following. Would love to cover it at some point. But we'll save that for another time. The Blob.
So the 80s version.
Yes, the original is good too, but I have a special place in my horror loving heart for the 80s version.
I'm excited.
All right, well, this was a pleasure. You know, sometimes going in blind, you don't know what you're going to get. I'm so glad you liked the movie.
I had so much fun with it. I would recommend it to anyone who thought they might enjoy it and just never had a chance to watch it.
All right, especially around this Halloween season. Throw it on in the background. I think you'll have a lot of fun. Thanks for being with us, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Real Demers. If you enjoyed what you heard, please support us by leaving a like, subscribe, or review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. You can find us on Blue Sky and Instagram. If you want to reach out and send a comment, you can email us at realdemers@gmail.com. Our music is by Adolfo Delanoy. You can check him out on Instagram at Adolfo Delanoy. That's at ADOLFODELANNOY. Thanks again, and be safe.